We turn now to some sad news as we remember the groundbreaking fashion designer Virgil Abloh, who passed away from an aggressive form of cancer on Sunday. He was just 41. According to a post from Virgil's verified Instagram account, he battled the disease privately since his diagnosis back in 2019. Abloh was best known for his iconic contributions to the fashion world and pushing artistic boundaries. He made history as Louis Vuitton's first black artistic director and also created the popular streetwear brand Off-White in 2013. As the news of his passing broke, tributes poured in. Pharrell Williams, one of them, he writes, "My heart is broken. Virgil, you are a kind, generous, thoughtful, creative genius. Your work as a human and your work as a spiritual being will live forever. Sending love and light to your wife, children, family, and day ones. You're with the master now." Lenny Kravitz sharing this image and saying, "Rest in power, King. You made an indelible mark on the world." Idris Elba tweeting, "Too soon, Virgil. You'll be missed from this world, man." And lastly, fashion designer Giorgio Armani tweeting, "It is with great sadness that I've learned of Virgil Abloh's sudden passing. I followed his career with great interest, his new approach to fashion and communication with a strong sense of inclusivity. My thoughts are with his young family." Virgil's work could be credited with inspiring a renaissance, really, for black artists and designers. It's a community where his loss may be felt the most. So here to look at his legacy for the culture is Nandi Howard, editor-in-chief of Houstonia magazine. Nandi, thank you so much for being with us this morning. So first I want to ask you, why was Virgil's presence in the fashion industry so impactful?
Yeah, no, Virgil was impactful, kind of like you initially mentioned, just uplifting Black designers and what he did for the culture. But he really started a Renaissance movement with young creatives, making them feel like they can do it, they can achieve these high power positions without a large fashion degree or without going through these steps that kind of that will present those groundbreaking moments for Black creators. He really bridge that gap and allowed creatives to say, hey, I don't have to go to this high power school and work through these chains of commands to get to be the creative director of Louis Vuitton. I can kind of grow up on the internet, study fashion, really, really love the craft, and make it into a seat at the table without having to go through these structural barriers that prevent African Americans from reaching that level. So he really made creators and young creators believe that they can do it, while also supporting that in like his many brands that he had across the board.
Right. So seeing his story certainly inspiring to a lot of people. What do we think about Virgil's aesthetic and what that brought to the mainstream, and how do we see his influence daily with fashion?
Yeah, I think his aesthetic was for the all Black kids, the ones who maybe didn't fit that mold, maybe didn't fit that stereotypical traditional, we always have to be cookie cutter with our shirts pinned up. He was able to kind of break that mold and say, hey, I'm going to wear a t-shirt and Rick Owens, or I'm going to wear crazy glasses and vape and be that kid that can sit front row at the Fendi show and be all and be kind of expressive. I think as young Black kids, we sometimes feel like we can't do that. And Virgil made it possible for us to kind of see ourselves in a different light and express our creativity in all facets and forms.
Certainly. What do you think his significance is for him to be a Black man and to hold this level of influence, in fashion?
Yeah, I mean, he was at an extremely high level, being the creative director of Louis Vuitton, working under that LVMH brand. We haven't seen many creatives of color working in that large LVMH brand that has so many of the brands: Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, Hermes, and many, many more. We saw Rihanna do it with her Fenty line. But it's not many of us that get to work under these large corporations that hold these multi-billion-dollar fashion labels. So he really sat at the height of that. But then also in this internet culture, this streetwear culture, he was kind of like the king of it. Influenced these kids, and even this younger generation, the kids that are buying Yeezys and standing outside to buy these kind of hype beast things. He really was sort of at the forefront of that. And so while he sat at a very high power table, he was also still influencing kids on the internet and people who were just trying to create and trying to figure out how he did it.
Right. Do we know what happens next in terms of, Off-White, his brand? Do we think that will continue on? And if so, what do we think that will look like?
Right. I mean, there hasn't been any official reports about where his brand is going, but I think he is going to still influence a lot of kids to continue to keep pushing. I think that his labels are going to still continue to keep pushing. I think that they're going to put some creative kids and people that he really invested in at the forefront of those, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. And although it's very tragic, I think that there's going to be many people that he's influenced under him that are going to rise in the ranks. And hopefully he sets an example to hire more Black creatives to be at the forefront of some of these labels.
All right, Nandi Howard, we certainly appreciate your time and insight. We understand you're also breaking barriers, so we'd love to have you back on the show at some point to speak about your career as well.